Our next presenter, hi James. Our next presenter is an alum of St. Cloud State University, who we are extremely proud of. And she has the courage to be bold, determined, and brilliant today, and share her own personal journey of being a woman with a disability in the Somali American community in the United States. Habso has a disability that she will share about and share her story of overcoming the challenges to become who she is today. Are you ready? Come on up. You got this. You got it.
Okay, by the way. Or do I have to do this? Does it move? Okay. How are you guys? I'm a little bit nervous. So my name is Habso Mohamud, and I was born in a refugee camp in Kenya. I am Black and Somali American Muslim, and I'm a woman with a disability, and I'm proud. So my story began at the refugee camp when we first left. It was when I was 10 years old, and we moved to Fargo, North Dakota. Imagine, from the refugee camp to Fargo. And during that time, like, it was like, the whole, like, us adjusting into the community and like the American culture and just starting over our whole life, because we had a life, we had a community in the refugee camp, and now our life has changed from like being a refugee to now being part of the American community. And my parents decided to move to St. Cloud, Minnesota from Fargo. And that has been our home for the past 17 years. And it was like the best decision my parents have ever made. And at the age of 12, my mom and I were at the clinic, at St. Cloud Clinic, and they told me that I was diagnosed with mental illness. And then we've only been in the country for 2 years at the time. And mind you, I didn't know what that meant. So did my mom. And I come from a family of 13 kids, so now it's like, she's gonna learn how to adjust into this American culture. And like, imagine like her starting her whole life over, not speaking the language, not knowing the culture. And now she has this disability that she needs to like, learn about and all of these things, right? For her child. And imagine, like, I remember as a young girl, I was like, I don't know what that is. I remember like kids would make fun of me at school, especially when I was in the K-12 system. And they placed me in special education classes. And it was very isolating in that community. And like being the only one, like from like a refugee background, being Black, being Somali, Muslim, and holding all those identities and being in a space where I don't see representation. So all of my friends, they decided that they didn't want to be my friends anymore when I was in those classes, and would call me, here comes your, like, when you, like those parents that, go to classes with you and all of that. Oh, there comes your chaperone now. It's time for you to go, right? And it was just very hard for me to like adjust into all those things. And all I wanted was to be like everyone else. All I wanted was for me to have another life, right? To start over my life. From a young refugee girl to now, like having all these identities and like trying to navigate, navigate the system and all of that stuff. So all those things didn't stop me from going after my dreams and doing the things that I wanted to do. And I remember like when I came to St. Cloud, like I started my PSEO classes in 11th grade at St. Cloud State. And I can still like remember that. I mean, I can still remember like the words that my friends were telling me. Oh, how did you get into PSEO? You were in special ed classes. And I was like, this is only the beginning. You guys don't know what's coming for you. So I went on and like did my PSEO classes, graduated high school, got into my program, and did my undergrad in travel and tourism at St. Cloud State University. And the day that I graduated and got my undergrad was like the biggest accomplishment of my life. And I was like, if I did this, I can do my master. So I went on and like applied for my master's program. And my mom was like my biggest cheerleader, my biggest supporter. And she said, I actually didn't want to do my master's. She's like, no, you got this. You have to do it. And I'm like, I just graduated. I want to work. She's like, no, work can wait. I want you to, she was like, you got to go back to school and like get your, because she was not familiar with the degree that I got. She's like, I wanted you to be a doctor and a nurse and like, and I'm like, no, I wanted to do travel. She's like, what are you going to do with travel and tourism? Travel the world? And I'm like, well, we're nomads. What do you expect? So I did my, after I finished my undergrad, I went to St. Cloud State again, did my master's in global education and gender and leadership development. And it was a special studies program, which I created my own master's at St. Cloud State. And it was St. Cloud State that made it possible for me to do that. And I went on and it was one of the classes that I was studying, and Dr. Mwangi, which she teaches gender studies, and it was the global feminism class, and we were talking about the Beijing, it was like the gender, yeah. And then I was like, oh, I called it like, it was a convention, but I was like, oh, an organization, like go do your research. So I went on and did my research and found out that there was actually an event, like a all-woman event that happens every year at the UN, which is the CSW conference. And that's when I told my professor about it, and I was like, I want to go. And she's like, you should. And I went on, and it was my first time in New York. The first time I went there and was there was when we first came to America. That's where we first landed. And my second time was when I went back and went to that conference. And that's when everything changed for me, and got involved in all these work that I'm doing with like the UN and with children, youth and children with disabilities and all of that stuff. Not only did I do my master's, but I was able to self-publish my first book. I had like all these books that I've written, and I've reached out to so many publishing companies, and they were like, well, how do we know if your book is gonna sell? And I'm very determined. If I set a goal for myself, I make sure I get it done. So I went on and self-published my first book, which is called It Only Takes One Yes. And that was my journey. And it was just that one person saying yes to me. And that person was me. Like, you have to say yes to yourself. You have to believe in yourself, regardless of whatever disability that you might have, regardless of whatever challenges that you might have. Like, not only I had so many barriers and so many things that were that were holding me back. Then again, I didn't let those things be a reason why I didn't accomplish those goals. If I did not have a seat at the table, I brought my own chair, and I'm still doing it. And I want young girls around the world to see themselves represented. For many years until now, I have not been seeing like people that look like me or young girls that look like me being represented on television. So what I did was, or characters that look like me. So Nazra, my character, for like it was in 2019 when I launched my mascot. And mind you, I was doing book reads all over the world. And for the first time ever, seeing young girls having like a character that a hijab, Muslim, Black character that looks like them and that they can relate to, reading a book for them. And that I was able to accomplish that goal that I set for myself because I'm growing up, I loved watching Dora. I grew up watching Dora, Arthur, Barney, and I wanted to see characters that looked like me and that represented young girls around the world, especially my younger sisters and my 25 nieces and nephews. And then after that, I also like launched my first, not launched, I published my second book, which is called Unseen, Unheard, and Misunderstood, which is a book for educators to, because those were some of the barriers that I had encountered as a young girl with disability from a refugee and like Black community, from a minority community. And I wanted those girls to see themselves represented and young refugees. And now more than ever, like now we're having a lot of refugees from Afghanistan, from all over the world coming into the US. And I want to make sure that they too don't feel isolated, like the same way that I was isolated, like I felt those isolation. I want to make sure that there's spaces where they feel like, they're being represented. I want to make sure that, they are, that they can see their future beyond their limitation, right? Beyond their disability. And if I can do it, so can they, right? And in 2019, like earlier actually, Anastasia was like talking about how, no, not Anastasia, sorry. Secretary Clinton was talking about if we give girls the opportunity to flourish and to be like, to do something for their families, not only are they gonna do something for their families, but also for their communities. I was able to launch my first company in Kenya, where I recruit international students from all over the world, Somali international students to come and study in America, especially those with disability. And now this spring, I have like recruited 30 students that will be coming to St. Cloud State if everything goes well with immigration from Somalia who are blind, completely blind. And mind you, out of all the students that I have recruited or that I have, we're talking to, the time that I felt like I was myself is with those students. I felt connected. I felt, I was resonating to their stories when they were telling me. So many of them that want to like study political science, social work. And I asked them, why do you want to study political science? And they were like, we don't have government representation. And in our community, when you have a disability, you're completely dismissed and you're seen as invisible, including the mosque, whether it's like the mosque, whether it is schools, and like universities, everything. So in any space, you are seen as like you're nobody. So I wanted those kids to like see light again. And they've told me that they're like, we might not be able to see, but you have shown us a light. You have shown us another future. And I want young girls and young boys around the world to be represented and to see themselves that they too can dream and they too can have a future, regardless of what their circumstances are. And I just, want to like tell everybody, like, you don't have to conform. You don't have to change yourself. You can just stand proud and be who you are and be confident in your own skin. And you let the world meet you where you're at. Thank you.
President Wacker, we have some amazing alumni, right? She's talking. Okay, we will remind her later. Shazad, is Shazad still here? Don't we have amazing alumni? So we're very proud of our alumni who are change makers in the world. Thank you.